somebody made an error at the shop.
It happens, right? Sometimes they just take your clothing. I remember when I used to weigh a very large amount of weight, like close to 300 pounds, and I wasn't a wrestler. And right after that happened, I think I was in Dillard's, which is where everybody in Texas should be. And this lady walked up to me, she goes, and this, because we're courteous in Texas, we help you, we control your outfits, right? So she walked up and she goes, I just want to let you know your tag's out. And I'm sticking your tag back in, right? That's a very Texas thing, right? Right, Christina? Right, Shannon? And I said, what did the tag say? And she said, medium. I said, leave it out. Oh, you guys, our boss is on. It wasn't me, boss. It was the other people. I was telling them that I want to tell you guys, since it's just the 200 of us. So today, it was a very traumatic day. I received an email from somebody, and they prior written noticed me. She sent me a formal prior written notice as a humanoid. I didn't know that you prior written notice. I didn't feel like I was a school district, but I'm coming on up. So I've been officially prior written noticed. I didn't receive it, but anyway, it was fantastic. How are you guys? Jump in, start asking questions. We're going to start with the great Christina, who's got her sleigh, sled, shaw. Oh, and then somebody asked me about the straws. So do I use a straw for everything? Yes, I do. Because using a straw doesn't mess up your coffee, and it keeps your teeth less brown for a lifetime. And then we have a class about how to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a separate class. It's a PG-13 class. Anyway, what is a prior written notice? It was a very prior. I was prior. Here comes ye before the court of the land. You have officially been notified of my notification. Okay. All right. Okay. But anyway, let's focus. This is serious, people. This is serious. Okay. Christina.
Yes. All right. So, in all seriousness.
Is it ever like in partial seriousness?
Maybe.
Well, then that deserves it's going to be a PWN night. I'm sorry. It's going to be all night. I'm going to be here all night.
Yes. So, actually, speaking of PWNs, somebody had a question. They were trying to get they're sitting in an IEP meeting, and the SLP would not kept on referring to a small group for instruction, and the LEA would not commit to a number. What do they consider a small group? I mean, is it 10? Is it 4?
So
20.
So what is a small group? The small group it's not really a number, right? So I've always said I could have a small group of 15 very quiet, laid back 9-year-olds and dyslexia. That could be a very nice small group. And then I could have one child that needs 3 adults. So there are no parameters around small group. Certainly we hope that it's a group that's less than the general ed setting, which would be great if you guys joined us in the academy tonight, because we're in a series called The Continuum of Services, and we're talking about that tonight. But while they certainly don't have to tell me the number, they got to give me a range. And so this is how my range starts. Is it 5? If it's 700, then they get all, it's not 700, Miss Cunningham. It's 30 stats. And also, whether it's a small group in the class, that's small. But then in resource, you have to realize there's only one teacher usually. It's usually just one resource teacher. If they have a pair, that's a blessing.
Okay. So, can you lose your license for not carrying out an accommodation? I'm assuming this is a teacher.
So, I don't know of any teachers that have lost their licenses for not carrying out an accommodation. I do know that I file on educator misconduct. That is for behavior that I find to be egregious, punitive towards a student with a disability. Over the years, that has been somebody that I knew that purposely changed the numbers on assessments, purposely an administrator who purposely withheld the information from the parents about the continuum of services and required a child to go into a setting that there have been reasons for that. I don't know that teachers lose their license. It's never my intention for teachers to lose their license. I love teachers. I love teachers. I love special ed teachers, general ed teachers, and paraprofessional. I don't like liars who are bean counters who force teachers to do things that are unethical. And it happens every day.
Okay, so here's an interesting one. I haven't heard this one yet. Mom wants me to write an IEP for her daughter to get tutoring.
Not a thing. I'd like to have an IEP like for hairspray. So, and listen, you guys, I'm not a fan of tutoring. I know everybody's going to be all mad in the comments. What does she know? She doesn't know anything. I don't know why we are having kids go to tutors. We live in America. We have a public education system. You show me one pediatrician, just one, who's going to say a little child should go to school all day and then go to school some more. And I see so many parents getting tutors in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and the people behind me are nodding. Like, let them just, they don't even have their teeth. Like, what are we doing? If you need tutoring for your child to be successful, then you probably haven't exhausted all of the options for educational support or special education support or 504 support in your public schools.
Oh, let's see. No, don't mess up that lipstick. That is for sure.
Yes, never.
What are your thoughts on schools only allowing dyslexia class, but it's not individualized?
So dyslexia is not individualized. It's not an IEP. So of the 9 specific learning disabilities, dyslexia is the one that can be served general ed or special education. It's called 2 pathways to instruction, either general education or dyslexia provided by a certified special education teacher, depending on the acuity of their other SLDs. So while I love dyslexia, I'm trying to get you guys to stop saying that so much, because sometimes you're missing the other SLDs and sometimes you're missing the ADHD. I want to know if there's any SLD in play and what is the most appropriate way to serve that. Or save that. Save.
My child with autism lost recess today and does not understand why that happened. How do I deal with this?
So I would light the school up like Christmas Eve and say, I'm certain there must have been a mistake today. For some reason, you kept my child in from recess, which is not a content area. You wouldn't keep them in from lunch. So let's look at another way to remedy whatever the problem was that you chose to resolve through recess. Now, additionally, somebody just asked me what the 9 SLDs are. So write this down really quickly. Ready? So there's 4 in reading. Sorry, let's start over because we want this clip to be perfect. So what are the 9 SLDs? So number 1 is dyslexia. Number 2 is basic reading. Number 3 is reading fluency. And number 4 is reading comprehension. There's also written expression, math computation, math calculations. I always get the maths crazy. And then there is oral expression and listening comprehension. So you always want to make sure that when you're testing for SLDs, that you ask for all 7 Gs and formal achievement to include oral expression and listening comprehension.
Can a school counselor be providing minutes and writing goals for an IEP?
Sure. Anybody can be providing help writing IEP goals. It would depend on what kind of counselor it was. There are some counselors who are certified to teach social skills. There are some counselors that are licensed to provide counseling as a related service in their state.
And then somebody's been invited to a case conference, not an IEP meeting. Do you know what that might be?
I do know what that is. So depending where you are in these great United States of America, you're invited to a PPT, case conference, an IEP, an ARD meeting. So I just always call them an IEP meeting, but a case conference is in different states. PPT are in different states. Florida has case conference. Kentucky has case conference. We just call it something different. Indiana, yeah.
And then can a gen ed teacher be listed as a service provider on they said service grid, maybe the schedule services page?
Skittles. Is that like candy? So when you have an IEP goal, if the student isn't in a self-contained special ed setting, then you would have a general education teacher as an implementer, and either a special education teacher as an implementer or a related or instructional service provider. Additionally, you could have a paraprofessional, but those two would have to be on there. The implementer is responsible for one of two things. They're both responsible to implement the goal, to work on the skill deficit and acquiring that skill. And then one of them is required to take, wait for it, written data. I know, it's really, I can't believe I said that. Yeah.
All right, so one more question for me, and then I'm going to lob this over to Sarah. You're on deck. Okay, so someone wants to know, where can they join the workshop or group? So probably academy. So we want to talk about what's going on tonight.
Yeah, so if you want to join the academy, I'll just throw this in and then I'll let all of you guys, should I just throw it in? Is our friend Alicia still on? So if you'd like to join the academy, you can have 2 weeks for free. When you go and register for the academy, Special Education Academy, just type in all capital letters, TikTok Live in all capital letters. Tick and talk, for these purposes, do not have the letter C. So TikTok Live. I'll let one of our kids type that in for you, and then you can get, you would put in your payment, and then where it says do you have a coupon, you would put in TikTok Live, and it would give you 15 days for free. If you want to stay, stay. If you don't want to stay, you don't have to stay, but we would love to have you. Tonight we're in a series, part 2 of a series, the full continuum of services. If you don't know what the continuum of services are, it might be punitive to your student. The school district has no onus, duty, or responsibility to tell you every single setting that your kid could be a part of, so it's really important that you know what those are. We have the academy, which we meet every Tuesday night for an hour. We teach on a little thing called the federal law, because it's like federal. It goes everywhere. And then we have 2-day intensives. We have 2 coming up, 1 in person, 1 live virtual, and then we always have 1 digital on demand that you can start at any time. And then we have a new Mastermind, which is a 20-hour, 2-week professional series for people that want to be an advocate for a living. Somebody asked, I'm just going to jump in, the Mrs. Moon. If you do the 2-day intensive, you are always allowed to attend the in-person as alumni at no charge, because I love people and we learn by repetition if there is room in the 2-day class. Okay, Miss On Deck, SB.
SB, do all services being provided need to be written on the service page with direct and indirect minutes?
If there's special ed service minutes, right? So there's no requirement for gen ed minutes. And so some states will put every single minute. So let's say for purposes of this, the instructional day is 380 minutes. Then all of those minutes have to add up to 380 minutes. But at minimum, you have to put on the special education minutes. They don't always put on the dyslexia minutes.
How young should you get children tested for SLDs?
1 month. Just kidding. I mean, I've had a child meet eligibility for an SLD when they were in PPCD. So it depends on the language that the child has, the ability to tolerate it. But I certainly have had children very well tested as a kindergarten. I'm not going to be looking for an eligibility of SLD for 3, 4, and 5. Why? Because that's not really the place where they serve that. It's certainly important to know by the time we do that, that 6-year testing, or if you start at 5, that you ask for all 7 Gs, and then additionally you ask for formal achievement to include oral expression and listening comprehension.
The school is saying my child has to ask for their accommodations. How is that a thing?
It's not a thing. It's actually an anti-thing. And that is when you should pull out your Special Education Academy pool noodle and bonk them in the head gently. So children do not have to ask for their civil rights. Say it with me. Children do not have to ask for their civil rights, and accommodation is a civil right. And if a child with a disability has to ask the adult who works there, that's a problem. Somebody asked if there's federal guidelines for children with suspensions for an IEP. There are, and OSEP, Office of Special Education Programs, just put out a great Q&A on discipline for children with disabilities.
It was brought to the light that my son was not provided his service minutes, but they wouldn't give a prior written notice.
Okay, so when it was brought to the light, I would just, whether they're going to give a prior written notice or not, I'm going to email them and say, hey, Mr. Smith, following up on our conversation today at the PPT, the case conference, the IEP meeting, at the pumpkin patch, you did confirm that Billy's minutes were denied him. Please let's set up a time so we can look at a compensatory time package to mitigate the impact of this loss.
I think this one's been asked a couple of times. School wants to switch the child from an IEP to a 504, and they want to know, do they have the same rights?
Say it with me. No. No, no, no. A 504 is a civil rights document. It's not an educational document. It was never intended to capture all these millions of children in America. I can tell you in 26, 27 years, I can think of one child that should have been on a 504, and I do mean one. Do you have a disability, and are you in need of specially designed instruction? And that simply means, is there something that's a deficit that we need to write a goal and work on mitigating it?
I've seen this one a couple times too. What's required to be an advocate besides knowledge?
A heartbeat. Kindness, compassion, fortitude, unwavering. We are people that just simply love these children. We love the law. We believe in justice and equity and access. And we are teachable and redirectable. And we also collect salt and pepper shakers. No pressure. I accept gifts year round. But anybody could be an advocate. Integrity. Yes, that would be helpful.
Integrity is a good thing.
I mean, let's throw that in there.
This one's been in there. Where do we get an advocate?
So you can go, usually most states have, if you reach out to your state, let's say you lived in Nebraska, I would email the Department of Education and say, could you please provide me a list of known advocates in my state and or attorneys? There's always COPA, Coalition of Parent Advocates and Attorneys. But the best place is always going to be to reach out to us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com, advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. We have a team of advocates that I have personally trained that will go in and properly serve your kiddo.
Okay, should districts ever start with most restrictive setting for a student just classified?
So it's least restrictive environment, and the legal term for that is extent of non-participation. So we always consider the least restrictive environment. Least restrictive environment is not general education. Least restrictive environment is a place that we believe where we can maximize the students' IEP supports and services to make the most gains on their individualized education program. So there are some children that will never be in general education, and that's the appropriate setting for them. So sometimes it's easier to understand LRE, least restrictive environment, by understanding the phrase most supported setting. Like, a good pair of pantyhose. It's something we used to wear in the 70s, Sarah. You probably don't even know what that is.
This is my last one, and then I'm going to kick it off to Bonnie. How does a nonverbal student get a device? It looks like she submitted a request and the school declined. They
declined. Like if somebody says, would you like, a mint after dinner? Oh, I'll decline. So we request a formal evaluation of assistive technology in the area of communication. So, there'll be no declining. We don't receive your decline. We'll, as Christina said, we'll lob your decline back over to you, and we'll send you a prior written notice that we are allergic to your declining. So if a student is nonverbal, the school should have already done an evaluation of assistive technology and communication. But you write that, they'll get that evaluation, we'll sign notice and consent, and we look forward to working together.
Okay, so a very important question from Miss, I believe this is Ashley Oliver. Do you have sunflower salt and pepper shakers?
I'm actually looking at sunflower salt and pepper shakers. However, I don't know that you can ever have enough sunshine in the job that I have. So yes, bring on the Kansas salt and pepper shakers.
Okay, and so how do you handle when a school says they cannot provide a draft because that would be predetermination?
So predetermination is when I have a conversation with Shannon, she's having a conversation with me, she's a school district, I am representing the family, and she doesn't listen to what I say. There's no movement, there's no understanding, there's no conversation about what I've offered. That's when you don't move, when you're cement, like when you're from Allen Independent School District. But predetermination means that you don't move at all. I've sat in meetings for hours, weeks, hours, and there was no movement. That means you've already determined what you were going to do, and you're just waiting us out, right? So, providing me a draft is good manners, right? When you go to buy a house, did you see the house before you bought it, or were you just like, it's got a door in the front and the back, you're going to love it? I'm helping my client make decisions about a child's entire 36 instructional weeks. Why wouldn't I have a draft? What a great business model so we can work together efficiently. So if somebody's goofy in a meeting, and sometimes they are stricken with if they won't do that, then I will have to send me a draft page by page by page. And it's usually just posturing. I find people that act like that are usually ill-equipped to do their job.
Do you recommend attending IEP meetings in person or on the Zoom?
Just on the Zoom. Just the Zoom. So a week from today will be 3 years since I've been sitting on the Zoom. I've never actually been on the Zoom because that seems like that could be a little bit uncomfortable. But I've been sitting here with my 50-foot Ethernet cord since March 13th, 2020 when the pandemic started. And I only participate that way. It's a phenomenal business model. I can screen share. The school can email me back and forth during the meeting. Nobody's asking Miss Bobby if they can run the photocopy machine, give Karen a copy. It's a great business model. And I have clients today. This week I was in Ohio, Florida, New Hampshire. Are there other states? I don't know. Colorado. The attorneys it's just a better business model. So if you're an OT, when you can be between kiddos and you can just jump on the Zoom instead of all of us driving to Elm Elementary School at 1:13 and sitting in a room where people might be achoo-ing each other.
How do you handle an elementary not having anything for a wheelchair student outside on the playground?
I file with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights violation of access to grounds, playground, and bathrooms. And they will take care of that.
Okay, and move-in student with TVI service 10 minutes a month. Do I have to do the same or can I change it?
Of course, 10 minutes a month is, I don't know if I can get your breakfast order in 10 minutes a month. That is past embarrassing. So we're providing the student the related service that's appropriate for them, not to overwhelm them, but so they can make goals, gains, and progress expected appropriate in light of their unique circumstances on their individualized education program. 10 minutes. Ugh. It takes longer than that for me to select my blazer in the morning.
Okay, and can they dismiss a student because, quote, they don't keep students on IEPs for fluency?
Sometimes I just feel like that RCA dog. It's like, did y'all hear that? We don't cause. This is what I would say. Can you please direct me to what page that is in IDEA? Because the we don't cause page, they took that out of mine. Yeah.
If principal and guidance, I'm assuming counselor, decide a kid needs an FBA and then calls a parent, is that predetermination?
I mean, if there's a need, there's a need. Obviously, the parent usually isn't at the school, so that wouldn't be unusual. No, I wouldn't call that predetermination. And somebody asked me if I called anybody muffin today. No, nobody acted like a muffin today. They acted like burnt biscuits, most of them.
Those aren't good at all.
Those are not good at all.
No.
Mm-mm.
Is Is there a way to write in an IEP as needed, either for accommodations or supplementary aids?
Yeah. So as needed, would you like that for oxygen or water? As needed, not a thing. As needed swings the door open for people's biases. So if I'm one of the teachers and Shannon's a teacher and Christina's a teacher, I would think those kids can just get it together and get it done. And then Christina gives 20% and then Shannon gives 50%. That's discrimination. So if you have an accommodation that needs a measurement, like reduction or extra time, then give it a measurement.
If a student was restrained more than 10 times in 1 month, how would I ask for more support?
Oh, if a student is restrained that many times, they're in the wrong setting. They're in the wrong setting. So that's why we talk about a continuum of services. I have students who are participating in the juvenile criminal system. I have children that are in out-of-district placements. I had a child placed today in a psychiatric unit. If you have to restrain a child, whether they're 3 or 22, 10 times, they're in the wrong setting.
Okay, one more from me, and then I will hand it over to Shannon. If an AU student in the gen ed setting has strong behavioral problems, does the BIP need to be changed?
So probably the setting needs to be changed, right? In the least restrictive environment, I feel like you guys you're doing really good pretending these are questions. The least restrictive environment, the most important question, I believe, and one of the most important questions is, does the student's behavior impede his learning or the learning of others? And so certainly we don't want a child with a disability impeding other children's learning. And so we have to look at all the children and the adults in that setting for impact and see if this is sustainable. Can we mitigate that behavior? Is it something we can address quickly, or are they not quite ready for that general ed setting? So now that we've lobbed, on deck, handed, Shannon, these are all like these athletic terms. No pressure, Shannon.
Right. Okay. What happens if you disagree with the change of placement that was supported by the FIE?
So what happens is you have the opportunity to disagree with the school-based members. If you disagree twice, what the school-based members said becomes the new IEP. If you want to stop that, Alicia, if you want to stop that, then you could file due process within 5 days. That places a pendency, meaning it's a stay put. So if I disagree with the placement, I can file due process. And then whatever setting that student is in that very moment stays. It's called a stay put until it's resolved. You come to a mediated settlement, or a hearing officer in your state decides the outcome. I love all these amazing pictures. Do you get those amazing pictures of me because you subscribed and now there's nothing? And here's the question. Did you all see the video of me falling? Can y'all all please raise your hand? I hope that, okay, it would be terrible if y'all didn't see the video of me falling in the playground. But I did hold on to the, thank you. Really, Alicia? I don't even know where she's getting, do y'all know where she's getting these pictures? I think they're from the playground. Thank you. I'm glad you watched the video. I did that for y'all. It was all like, Ed, action. Did y'all notice that I did not drop the camera? Or more importantly, I did not drop this. My lipstick. So.
Okay, how do you request an FBA? And what if they still deny it?
So the FBA would be requested by the school-based members. So we request an FBA because we're trying to determine the function of a behavior. So it would be unusual that just the parent is requesting it. Surely, goodness, the school-based members are needing it too.
If a parent declines an evaluation but the district suspects a disability, is child protected by manifest?
No, manifest determination is only based upon when a child has a behavior and they're in a 504 or they're in an IEP. There's no manifestation determination resolution meeting if you're not under one of those entities. If the school-based members ask for an evaluation of a child with a suspected disability, the parents have to provide consent. Special education testing is consensual. Initial provision of services is consensual. If the parent doesn't provide that, you cannot test them unless you have an order from a hearing officer in your state.
Can you have a 504 and an IEP?
Well, unfortunately, you can. There are some states that you can. But the intent is if you're on a 504 and you get an IEP that you hand that off, because the contents of the 504 would sit inside of the IEP. Alicia, can y'all just see what she's doing? Am I supposed to? Yeah. Look at all those outfits. Don't laugh, Shannon. This is serious stuff. We are helping.
I can't see.
We're helping the nation of America.
I'll go look in a minute. Can a psych say no more evaluations because there are less than 60 days left of school?
No, that's funny. I had a psych tell me the other day, I won't tell you where. I was done testing, and she was done testing. I'm telling you that is exact. What? I mean, sir, can't you get a Mountain Dew or something? Like in a snack? That's what he said. So, we don't have to test when the school is not open, right? So, Thanksgiving break, spring break, winter break, Christmas break, summer break, there's no testing. Am I going to sign notice and consent 5 days of school left and then you start testing? For me, that wouldn't be good recommendation to my client. And understanding that testing, when you request testing, you got to get in line. My child that I want tested for special education doesn't move anybody out of line, so there's other children in line. So we're coming up to the end of the year. I just did a request for testing in another state this morning that starts with a letter that I won't tell you, because I think that's the only state. Are there more than one states that start with O? 2. What are they? Ohio and
Oregon.
Oh, I knew that. I was thinking Iowa. Does Iowa start with an O? No, they've moved the O to the middle. And thank you for that assist, Sarah. Somebody was talking during that. So a lot of schools go to school through like the second week of June. In Texas, we stop at the end of May so we can get ready for football season. In Oklahoma. Thank you. So clearly none of us know what we're talking about. Yeah, you young kids, you guys were paying attention. The rest of us, we were chattering. There's 3 states. Let's hear for those. I'm so glad it's not just me. You know what's happened? It's all this Clorox bleach on my hair over the years. I don't know what these other kids, that's funny. Whew, I was really thinking there was just one state. Anyway, so we signed notice and consent today. They're open through like June 6th. So we're going to get the IEP finished, the testing, and then have the case conference. That sounds so official, don't you? Where are you going today? I'm going to the case conference. So. Yes, we love everybody in Louisiana. Oh, wait, somebody's in South Louisiana. Are you in South Louisiana near Houma? Because if you are, I can meet you at Mr. Ronnie's. I'll be there in a couple weeks. I just want some. Do you guys know about Mr. Ronnie's in Louisiana? 24 hours, piping hot donuts. Because when you're at this stage in life, that's the only thing piping hot you want.
Okay, you ready? This one's been asked a couple times.
Okay.
There's only one deaf, hard of hearing teacher for the district, and she's out for 6 weeks. Do they have to supply a sub?
So obviously it's not the sort of thing that you can just call 1-800 deaf and hard of hearing itinerant teachers can help you. So I would wait for compensatory time. Sensory disabilities are, for me, very important that student builds trust with that provider. So I would wait for those services and ask for compensatory time. Did somebody ask for a screening? Ugh. That's like getting a hair in your mouth. Raise your hand if you want a screener. No, we don't want screeners.
Let's see. And then someone said, Yosi Boss, ask the question again. I can't see it. She's asking if you'll answer her question.
I'd be happy to. And somebody asked me, where do you apply to be an advocate? So when we train people, you're ready to go. There's no application. The applications are already out there. There are 7.5 million children in America that have an IEP. million. There's 605,000 children in Texas that have an IEP. I'm in a city of Houston with just 7 million people. There's one other advocate here that I would refer. One. So I don't know what y'all waiting for. Come on.
Okay, here's the question. Can they suspend kids with IEP and ODD for behavior problems?
You can suspend any child. So a child with a disability is not exempt from the student code of conduct. It's very important when you have a child that has neurological differences, emotionality, not stable in their emotions, that you capture in that section which it says behavioral needs and is the student able to understand the student code of conduct, that I would capture any patterns or past behaviors that might be purposeful should an SRO become involved or an administrative decision have to be made for discipline.
Okay, and I'll ask one more question, then I'll pass it on to Christina. Does an ASD student need academic goals to keep their IEP?
So a student needs academic goals if they have academic deficits or if they are a student that's in a self-contained setting.
All right, so
Well, hold on, y'all missed one from Alicia that's very important. That's Shannon asked Karen, where are we going to lunch at the 2-day next weekend?
We're going to Iguana Joe's. We don't change lunch, ma'am. And they have free fake ice cream. That's what I'm there for.
that is the important stuff, man. Okay, so student has intermittent homebound, and school is saying that they will lose their related services speech during that time when they're homebound. Is that true?
It sounds like a lie. You know why it sounds like it is? Because it is. So homebound means a student is not able to tolerate the totality of the instructional day. So they receive their 4 academic classes, usually about an hour a week from an instructor of homebound. If the student can still tolerate their related or instructional services, we provide them.
Excellent. All right, my favorites.
Is it Teresa? Oh, I'm sorry. We'll just chop that out. And,
although I have been asked for updates.
You have not.
The update.
How could you be asked for updates if they're closed?
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
You know what? Even when you're not at work, they're thinking about us, Christina. They're thinking about us. I do want to mention on this live that we're having in Houston a press conference at 2 o'clock May 14th, Tuesday, 2 o'clock May 14th in Houston. If you email us at Advocate at Special Education Academy, Advocate at Special Education Academy, we'll be releasing that Houston location and school district Friday after close of business. So if you're in the Houston area, we would like for you to come and join us. A student has egregiously been impacted in a special education provision of services and absolutely denied a free appropriate public education.
All right, so
A free appropriate public education.
all right, so
Are these trick questions? So RTI is an option that amazing teachers have to use for a moment to see if they can mitigate a student's struggle in a class. A few weeks, a grading period.
yeah. My student uses a speech device, and it's coming home not used. What do I do?
So what I would do if I had given the opportunity of the school to fix that is that I would file with the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights. The law says under the federal code that every teacher, every instructor must be able to use the student's VOCD or their language modality with equal access of the other student. And so kind of what that means in layman's terms, I'm an English speaker. I'm an English speaker. Oh, clearly I'm not. I'm an English teacher. I'm an English speaking teacher. I speak English. Most of my students speak English. And I have a child with a VOCD. I have to be just as proficient in communicating with that student as the other kids. So it's kind of important that that's used daily. And if you are denied that, that's one of your accommodations. So your voice output communication device is an accommodation. And I'm just going to jump in. A lot of people are saying that they want to come to the 2-day, but they can't get to Houston. We understand, because you don't want to have your hair that curly and sweaty. So we're having, for the first time in over a year, a live 2-day virtual the weekend of April 15th and 16th. So you guys can join from anywhere, bathtubs or balconies. That should be the name of the class, bathtubs and balconies.
Bathtubs and balconies.
On your way to your advocate career.
Yes. All right. Okay. So my son has been placed in a program classified for emotionally disturbed, but he has no ED traits. He was mainstream.
Okay, so I had a case like this just the other day in Florida. When you are in a self-contained class that is behavioral in nature, there's a threshold for that class. There's lots of kiddos that have behaviors, but they don't meet the criteria for that class. So whatever the setting is, you have to have the data to support it. So the school-based member said to me, when I said, why is he there? And he's in 3rd grade. They said, because that's where he went when he got here. Like he just walked down the hall and opened that door. That's where he went when he got here 4 years ago. Unacceptable. So we provide education in the appropriate setting, and we look at that all the time to make sure that we're getting it right.
All right. And then can you explain the difference between medical versus educational diagnosis?
Sure. So maybe I can do something better. I can describe 3 models, right? There's a medical model, there's an education model, and there's a therapeutic model. And they are all correct within their scope. But as it relates to IDEA, the Individual Disabilities Education Act, we're looking for an educational need, right? An identified disability that impacts a student educationally. So academic, behavioral, functional, emotional, social, communicative, related services, academic, those sorts of things. So you could have a medical diagnosis and meet the medical criteria of a myriad of things in the DSM-5 criteria, but it not rise to the level where somebody above the general education teacher has to provide you education during the day.
Is it true if if a diagnostician told me that if they evaluated my son and he didn't need services, they wouldn't be able to reevaluate for 3 more years? Is that true?
No. So we can evaluate immediately. If you disagree with the findings, it's called requesting an independent educational evaluation. You just have to use a different instrument. We just make it up as we go. Independent school district.
Okay, there we go. Should I tell the teacher I know they aren't using my child's device?
So I don't know that I would say that. I would say my child's device hasn't been used. Going forward, can we anticipate that starting? So you say the truth and then let them respond to that truth. I would do that in writing. Because here's the deal. We actually know if you're not using the device because I can pull the minutes. So for all the paras and the teachers and the special ed teachers and general ed teachers who have not been trained, just know that I can come home and pull that you press the button 1 time today, or you use the word carrot. So make sure that you are, if there is a child with a VOCD in your class, that you are properly trained by your district on the use of that and how that's tied to their IEP goals.
And can a SPED teacher not send a para with a student due to the shortage? The student has a 1-to-1 written into IEP.
No. And I just want to say this because I like to say things. We've always had a shortage in special education. I am not uncompassionate to that. I am uncompassionate to people lying. I have a visceral response to administrators and bean counters looking at parents and telling them that there was a provision of services. That's what I'm offended by. I got a little thing this week that a school district has been really low on a related service provider for speech. And this district is going to offer, are you ready? Speech camp. Speech camp. They're just going to speech them. What? They're going to speech them for 3 hours a day. Would you be interested in that? What do y'all think I said? No.
I think that's a no.
Speech camp. We're just going to speech you. You just sit here and be speeched.
Get speeched. Okay. If a child has other health impairments and an IEP, should I also ask for a 504 plan as well?
No. If you have an IEP, you have all that you need.
Okay. And then, could a school refuse a pre-K spot if they have an IEP or request we forfeit the IEP in order to keep the spot?
So there's a lot that goes on at pre-K, and it's a very personal decision. 3, 4, and 5 is a gift. For ECSE, Early Childhood Special Education, that's criteria that you are speech impaired and or you may have other disabilities. Pre-K is set up very different across districts in America, where some of them have general ed time with children that are not disabled, children that are ESL students, children that are maybe the staff members' kids. So you have to figure out what's most appropriate for your family. That's a very personal decision.
Okay, and Landline had a question.
Landline!
Landline is here.
First of all, is Landline coming in March or April? Because, we've held on long enough.
That's true. Inquiring minds do want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe she'll answer while we're on here.
Yeah.
So, what if you can't get an SLB to provide homebound?
You can. You can. They have a thing called, we have telehealth. Probably half of our family's doctors are telehealth. So there are some services we can provide through telehealth. One of them is speech. So if you agree with the shenanigans, you're a shenanigan agreeer. I don't agree with the shenanigans. So we will wait till the right provision of services. We can do private. We can do a myriad of things.
All right, last one from me. And then I'm going to toss it to Madam Sarah. Here's your new name. Is Madam Sarah.
Wow.
She likes that too.
I feel like that's going to get her on Dateline, but okay.
I do. No, that's snapped.
Oh.
Is it snapped? Snapped.
She was participating in that earlier this week.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. All
right. So, is there a limit of days a learning support student can be suspended?
So suspended, expelled. A student can be expelled. There's a limit of days that you can be suspended without being required to have a manifestation determination resolution meeting at MDR, and that's 10 days. But kids get suspended all the time, everywhere. And then I'm gonna take 3 more questions because then it's time for the academy. So if you want to be on the academy, if you want to join for free for 2 weeks, just go to the academy, and then you join of the deal. And then when you put in your information at the bottom, it will say, do you have a coupon? And you'll type in TikTok Live in all capital letters. TikTok Live, all the other kids are going to type that in for you. And then you get free access for 15 days. We have over 200 hours of training and workbooks and all of the things. We would love to have you join us. You can stay as long as you want and leave if for some reason you would want to do that. All right. I'm ready for my last 3. Sarah, lob them over the fence.
Okay, when do I know my child is ready to be dismissed from his IEP?
When there's no longer a need for somebody above the general education teacher to provide him education during the day.
I thought you would just like this one. SPED director sent a letter to parents stating no services for special ed kids due to the teacher shortage.
Wow, well that seems to make it official. What if you just send a letter and to the mortgage company and say, no mortgage payments due to these gas prices. And then you could add a PW into it. I feel like that would make it official. It's not a thing. They didn't stop taking federal funds. I would ask them, did you send the federal funds back? That's literally what I would ask them. Muffin. that's where you would add muffin. Yeah.
That's the one. Last one. I think it's somebody who is an advocate.
I know. I'm looking for somebody wants to see the IDEA book, and then I would have to find it and then locate it and then the thing of the deal. I have it here. It's somewhere within arm's reach, but somebody lovely helped clean up my office today. It's usually right here. It's here somewhere within my reach of something that I can't locate at this very second, but I'm listening.
She wanted to know, how do you amicably work with an IEP team, but also still get the things that students need?
So, I mean, the word amicably, I don't know what that means. That sounds like gargling with, I don't know, baby oil. These are business meetings. I'm not trying to be nice. I'm not trying to be ugly. But for instance, today I was at a meeting, and it was just posturing gone wild. And I said, could I have a copy of this? And then two people asked them, the parent, if I had permission to receive that email. So I said, you look ridiculous. Your behavior is childish, and it's a waste of valuable time. This is not how we run business meetings. Is it okay, Bonnie, if I send I'm in the meeting. Obviously, you have consent. I'm in that meeting representing the parents. And we just waste time because we get our feelings hurt about what we think or don't think about, people in the meeting. And so it's ridiculous. But however, as it relates to special education and related services, the IDEA law book is at the link, our Amazon link, and it's only $40. It's a Code of Federal Regulations 300 to 399, so you can find that in the link. And then I have it somewhere close to somewhere, and I'll have it next time. So remember, thanks you guys for jumping on. If you want information about that press conference, email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com. And remember, when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. And we'll see you guys in the next training.